Good afternoon and welcome to the webinar. It's about 1:04 Mountain Time, so we will begin. My name is Stephanie Cote. I will be your webinar facilitator this afternoon. I'll be assisting in the background portion of the webinar and answering any questions typed into the question and answer section of the webinar. Here at OESTA, I'm the communications manager. If you have any future webinar requests or have any questions or comments regarding the communications at First Nations OESTA Corporation, please email me at stephanie@oesta.org. I'm happy to hear from you. First Nations OESTA Corporation was created 15 years ago to address the lack of capital and financial infrastructure holding back economic development in Native communities, recognized by its parent company, First Nations Development Institute. OESTA is the only existing Native CDFI intermediary offering financial products and development services exclusively to Native CDFIs and Native communities. Specifically, OESTA provides technical assistance, training, investments, research, and policy advocacy to help Native communities develop an integral range of asset-building products and services, including financial education and financial products. Does your organization need lending capital? OESTA considers loan applications on a rolling basis. Our products range from first-in loans for emerging loan funds to capital loans for established CDFIs. Thrive of Native or a Native organization needing a loan to increase access to healthy foods in your community? Check out our new Native Fresh Foods Fund loan product. OESTA considers loan applications on a rolling basis. Application requirements include current and historical financial statements, portfolio reports, loan policies, current and historical financial statements, and a comprehensive business plan or comparable information. For more information on our loan products, please contact Emily Trump at emily@oesta.org. OESTA offers expert training from committed professionals who have extensive expertise in Native community economic development. Our training and technical assistance consists of several programs that not only help participants assess how starting a Native CDFI can benefit their communities, but also takes them step-by-step through the process of establishing one of these proven and innovative institutions. For more information on our technical assistance and training, please visit our website at www.oesta.org. And next, I'd just like to test out our webinar platform here today. And if you could answer the following question in the question and answer box. What organization are you representing today? I'll give everyone just a few seconds to locate the box and to answer the question. So we have Lakota with Four Bands Community Fund, and Lauren White with NADC, sorry, and Felicia with Citizen Potawatomi, Lincoln with White Earth Reservation Federal Credit Union. Thank you all for joining us. And throughout the webinar, if you have any questions, please feel free to use this feature, and I'll be happy to answer them, or we will have our panelists answer them at the appropriate times. This afternoon, we have the pleasure of learning from our Native CDFI peers in their endeavors of exploring green energy lending. Nepali is Hawaiian, a graduate of the University of Notre Dame and a manager of all fiscal responsibilities of Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement. He uses decades of financial management experience at the local, national, and international levels to support programs that serve Native Hawaiians. Lakota Maurer is the Executive Director at Four Bands Community Fund. In this role, Lakota provides leadership for 4 bands, establishes new and fosters existing partnerships, and leads and manages efforts to reach organizational goals. Erin St. Peter, Development and Outreach Coordinator of 4 Directions Development Corporation, coordinates FDDC's day-to-day development, communications, and impact measurement strategies. Erin is also working to enhance the asset building and financial capability components of FDDC's free tax preparation and financial education programs. Thank you so much for joining us, Nepali, Lakota, and Erin. Without further ado, I will turn it over to you, Nepali.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. As Stephanie mentioned, I'm with the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement. We're a relatively small organization. We've been certified as a CDFI for 6 years now, and our loan portfolio, including all of our different loan products, not just the green energy loan products, is somewhere around $1.5 million. So we're pretty small, and we've got a pretty small staff. In terms of green energy lending, next slide, Stephanie. I'll just give you a little bit of history of how we got into lending in this area. Our lending really started out as a grant program. We had grant funds from a couple of different sources. One was through Department of Energy to provide solar water heater grants, so folks could convert from electric to solar water heater in their houses. We received a grant for that product to provide to low-income households. We also received similar funding through NAHASDA to provide grants for solar water heater conversions as well. And through that program, what we found is we were getting applications from individuals who were above the income threshold. And so in order to provide service to those community members, we developed a loan product in order for them to get a loan in order to purchase solar water heaters. And so that's kind of how our lending in the green energy started. Our goal in developing terms for that loan product was to try to keep the payments on the loans affordable for the families, and actually to make their net out-of-pocket for energy costs to be less than before they got the solar water heater. So that's kind of how we entered into green energy type lending. Next slide. So that's how we got into the area. And then, so currently, in terms of what we're doing under this type of a loan product, we still have the grants that we're providing, although not as much as before, but we still have funding through NAHASDA to provide grants for low-income families. And then we also have the solar water heater loans, which those loans run from anywhere between $6,500 and $8,200, which that's the full cost of the solar water heaters. And the terms that we set up were 10-year repayment periods, and the interest rate fell anywhere between 7.75% to 4.75% with no down payment. Now, the difference in interest rate really was just based on whether or not we were able to participate in any type of subsidy program for the interest. So the state has a program that pay down for interest rates on loans for this type of a purchase. And so we use that money in order to subsidize the interest rate, and that's how we have some loans at the lower interest rate down in the 4%. So we have that continuing product for solar water heaters, and then we also evolved then into larger size loans for families who wanted to install full photovoltaic solar systems on their house. And so that loan product is capped right now at $25,000 for the total loan, And the standard terms are 10 years at 7 3/4%. And for this particular loan product, because it's at a higher dollar amount, we were requiring borrowers to put down 15%, just so that they've got additional buy-in into the loan, and we are more assured that they're going to be good borrowers and make good repayment because they've got a vested interest in the system. So that's our standard terms. We did do a pilot program with this loan product where we partnered with one of the photovoltaic contractors in the state. They actually bought down the interest for people who purchased the system from them. And so in doing that, we did a one-year pilot where the cap on the loan was still $25,000, but we extended the terms to 20 years at a 4% interest rate, and we had no down payment. It was a very successful program. We went through, the dedicated capital that we had for that pilot program. But those are pretty unique terms, and as you'll see on the next slide, probably something we might be reluctant to do later, just because it ties up our capital for an extended period of time. So those are our existing loan products under the green energy area. Next slide. So just kind of our takeaways on some of the good things that we've seen in providing these types of loans and some of the bad. You'll see, the good thing is that for solar products here in Hawaii, we have very high demand. We've got lots of sun, and so it's a really great renewable energy source. So it's very popular among consumers. The other reason why this type of a product is popular and has high demand here in our area is because the electricity costs are quite high. So depending on what island you live on, the per kilowatt cost of electricity runs anywhere between approximately 28 cents per kilowatt to 48 cents per kilowatt hour. So that's pretty high, and certainly a lot higher than most of the areas on the continent. There's also still, even though there's some changes going on within the state in terms of tax incentives being reduced and other types of issues we have with our local energy company, there still is potential for growth. So this still is a growth market for us. The other thing that we've noticed, I think I kind of mentioned, is that in our larger photovoltaic loans that we've made, because we've required down payments and there's buy-in from the consumer, we've noticed that we haven't had any problems in repayments on that loan product, and certainly no defaults. Now, some of the challenges that we've seen are that we've had some issues with our low-income and elderly borrowers in terms of late payments and defaults. And what we've noticed is that those folks are more susceptible to any slight changes in income, and so where there have been layoffs within those families or other things that impact their income, it immediately impacts their ability to repay on our loans. So those are the most needy, but also the most risky. So we've seen that. I mentioned that we probably won't do a 20-year term type of a loan again. It's just we believe that it's just tying up our capital for an extended period of time, and we'd rather focus on more shorter term types of loan products. The other thing that we've noticed, especially with the grant program, is that there's just a lot of bureaucracy, and it takes a lot of time in our particular situation working with our trust lands and with those folks in administration in that agency. It's just takes really long in order for us to deploy grants through that program. And as an example, I'll give you for the NAHASDA funding that we have, we received funding back in 2012. Now it's 4 years later, and we still haven't deployed grant funds for the majority of the funding that we have for solar water heater conversion. So just a lot of bureaucracy, just a challenge in that program. But other than that, you know, that's kind of our green energy lending. And that's all I have, Stephanie.
Thank you so much, Nepali. Did anyone have any direct questions for Nepali? We'll open it up at the end of all of the panelists for any questions, but if there was anything specific. My specific question was, what is a photovoltaic system and how is it different than a solar water system in terms of pricing?
Yeah, so solar water heaters, you've got two solar panels that heat the water that goes into your water heater. So depending on size of the solar water heater, an 80-gallon water heater will cost around $6,500, and a 120-gallon water heater will cost around $8,200. Now, so a solar water heater, the solar panels only heat the water in your water heater. For photovoltaic systems, what that is the solar panels actually generate electricity that in most circumstances is fed back to the electric company grid. And so the original way that the program worked is that the electric company would offset your electricity usage by the amount of electricity that was fed back to the grid based on your from your solar panels. So the cost of photovoltaic systems could range anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000 depending on how many solar panels you install. The more solar panels you install, the more you offset your electricity usage, and the goal with photovoltaic is to net out to zero. So where you're producing as much electricity as you're using, and then your electric cost theoretically is $0.
Oh, that's neat. Cool. Thank you for sharing. And we just had one question from Brad. He asked, what is the status of PACE in Hawaii? It's capital P-A-C-E.
Yeah, Brad, I'm not that familiar with PACE. Can you tell me what that stands for?
Property Access Clean Energy.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not really familiar with that program. I'm sorry, but I am going to look it up.
And we just had one question from Lauren. He asked, what are the stats on net zero achievements in the loan cost?
Can you elaborate? I'm not sure I understand net zero achievement.
Oh, I can unmute Lauren real quick. Hi, Lauren.
Oh, hey, thanks. Yeah, I was just wondering, did the average cost of the loan then for your clients, did that exceed what they were paying for the electricity before, or was it less? I was just wondering what you guys were seeing on that.
Yeah, so the standard thought in terms of cost savings is for solar water heaters, what the standard conventional wisdom is that your electric bill is comprised probably around 30 to 40% of your electric bill is comes from your water heater. And so when folks install solar water heaters, then they're expecting to see somewhere between 30 and 40% reduction in their electric costs. For photovoltaic systems, and I hope I'm answering your question, for full photovoltaic systems, what they do is the contractor will take a look at the individual's monthly energy consumption, so how many kilowatts of energy they're using per month, and then base the number of solar panels, estimate the number of solar panels based on their energy consumption to ideally net it out to zero. Did that answer your question, Lauren?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, and we have one more from Erin. She asks, are there methods for collateralization, if any, for each product?
Yeah, so for our loan products, I mean, on paper, we've indicated that the solar water heater or the photovoltaic system is being provided as collateral for the loan. But in reality, if somebody defaults, it's not like we're really going to go and go to their house and pull out their water heater and take it away, or go and rip the solar panels off their roof. So it's a higher risk for us. So in order to try to mitigate that risk, because these really are unsecured loans, we just are really trying to make sure that we're underwriting, well, and trying to make sure that the borrowers actually are able to repay. And then also we're pretty active if we start to see late payments, working with the borrowers to try to figure out what's going on and to help them to get back on track.
Great, thank you, Nepali. I believe that's all the questions, and we'll have a few after the rest of the panelists. Next we have Lakota.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lakota Maurer. I'm the Executive Director at Forbands Community Fund. We're located in the Plains area. We're up on Cheyenne River in sort of north-central South Dakota. I think it's really interesting to listen to this because it sounds like, Nepali had to become an expert in some of these things that maybe otherwise wouldn't have, and that's a similar experience that we had at Forbands. So I'll talk a little bit about what we did, and we started our project back in 2012, 2011-ish. It was one of those opportunities we saw for some funding, and it came from HUD. It was called the Rural Innovation Fund, RIF, and I don't know if they still offer that money, but we just wanted to kind of dip our toes into it, and we wanted to create, well, we saw that there's extremely challenging environments here for our entrepreneurs on the reservation, specifically because of the harsh climate. So we wanted to incorporate some sustainable and environmentally friendly business practices on the reservation. And it was kind of based on the fact that businesses would focus on becoming more energy efficient by reducing their operating expenses, like their overhead costs, and hopefully make themselves less vulnerable to the rising energy costs, which are extremely high on the reservation. I don't know the price per kilowatt hours. I should, since I pay them, but I don't have that to quote, but I know we feel that we have really high energy costs here as well. And what the intent was to enroll businesses into an academy, and we called it the Cheyenne River Sustainable Business Academy or the Cheyenne River Green Academy, and it was really an educational opportunity to just begin the conversation to talk about what green means, because it's not a familiar term up here in north central South Dakota, and there isn't a lot of resources that are promoting anything green, so we had to put a lot of education into it. So for example, the logo you see on the screen is, first come find out what it means to green Cheyenne River, because there's a lot of different things we were trying to address, and we tried to make it very simple. It was mainly just express your interest, step one, enroll in our academy, and that included several sit-down sessions with people and just information about, everything under the sun, basically. And then two, once we selected people that wanted to move forward, we actually asked them to complete an energy audit of their home or their business. And so that took some capacity building. We actually didn't have any energy auditors within our community, so Forbands had to create a curriculum or purchase a curriculum and then learn it ourselves and then teach and train 2 to 3 energy auditors within our community and then purchase some of the energy auditing equipment and things like that. And then we actually supported the growth of 3 to 4 jobs in doing that, but then also invested in the business to take that on as their full-time or one of their aspects of their business. And then the next part of that was we called it like a green print, kind of like a blueprint, but more a green print so that they could create an action plan of the next steps to green their home or their business. And then it was after the loan officers read their green print, they could receive financing to execute the green print. So that was the steps. We tried to make it simple, but I can get more in detail about the actual products. So next slide, Stephanie. So like I said, we did these energy audits, and really our main reason for doing this was we wanted people to think critically about their home. So if somebody said they needed a new heater in their home, we wanted to make sure that they weren't losing a lot of heat within their windows, so to help them prioritize some of the investments to make within their home or their business. So we thought the energy audit would really provide that type of insight for the homeowner or business owner, and we enjoyed the process, and we thought it was really helpful in informing what the client could ask for the loan product. Like I mentioned, the green print was part of the loan application process. They completed it together with their coach, and we sort of evaluated sustainability practices and then identified action steps to reduce waste, conserve energy, and increase their profits. I will mention here the term, we kept it vague. We called it sustainability, and that number when you get into, or that word when you get into it, is such a broad word, but it was great because we allowed our community to define that for themselves, and it really pushed us into this whole level of new work into social entrepreneurship, really. And it was a platform for us to begin talking about that, because some of the sustainability practices we found out that were good or easy was like in a rural area like ours. I think we're the size of Connecticut, but with only 8,000 people, I think we have more cows per capita than we do people. So one of the things that we considered a sustainable business practice was just limiting the frequency that you traveled by car. For example, we had a business that was 40 miles away, and they would find somebody leaving that community to deliver their products to the outlying communities, and it was just this network of transportation that they had set up to sort of conserve energy and to save on gas and things like that. So we kept an open mind about what sustainable practices could be, and it was really interesting and really exciting to see what people had already thought of. We just attached the word to it, and that was what the learning was about. Okay, could you go to the next slide? So in order to get people interested in this weird word of green business loan, we did get a grant to subsidize the costs to implement some of the green print plans. So that was nice. It was actually like the carrot, on the stick. So we actually got to offer about up to $5,000 for each loan that we put out. And I will say, when you're starting a new thing like this in a community that's not used to this, it really did help us get people in the door. That was all they cared about at first, and then we were able to talk to them about the other things. So that was great, and we appreciate HUD for allowing us to do that. And then we did add these educational workshops on top of things. We had a lot of partnerships, like our electric cooperative come in. We had a lot of little small groups that were focusing on this, like a recycling community group got started, and so we held quite a few workshops, and anybody who was a part of the academy had to attend. Okay, next. And so up to the financing. We didn't create like really new products for this. We wanted to keep it simple and kind of keep it in line with what we were already offering. We just added new definitions of what the money could be used for. So for greening your home, we offered consumer loans up to $5,000 to make energy efficiency improvements. And really, most of it ended up being energy efficient appliances for their home. And the good thing about that was most appliances nowadays are energy efficient, but we were able to support, local vendors for that too. So that was good. And then greening their business, we offered business loans from $5,000 to $50,000 for, like I said, very broad purposes, but we allowed them to define it and make the sell to us as the lender, and if it kind of fit into, we have a sustainable business checklist, if it could meet any one of those sustainability checklist measurements, we sort of wrapped it into our green business loan. And actually the amount, we did do a loan up to $250,000, so we did vary our loan term on that one, but it was a great opportunity, and it still is. It's a great business, and so we wanted to, congratulate them on that opportunity. And then the other one was just if they were starting or expanding into a green industry. I would say some of that happened, but it's one and of the same, basically. Okay, next slide. And this is just part of the community education. We did a lot of marketing around the Green Cheyenne River, and I'm sorry you can't see it very well, but we just did little steps, the top 10 ways to Green Cheyenne River, which is, unplug your appliances when you're not there, little things like that. Start a neighborhood recycling network where the nearest recycling center might be 100 miles away, but we've had people in this little recycling network will say, I'm making a trip to Pierre, South Dakota, so put your recycling out on the curb and I'll pick it up and take it. So that's been kind of interesting. And then, things like get an energy audit, because our local cooperative does do that. So this was just our way to begin the education process and to market our program. Next slide. And some of the partners in here, like I mentioned, were the business contractors, the people we utilize to make the improvements on the business or the homes, and the local energy auditors. Unfortunately, of the 4 that we trained, none of them still do it, except, not even the business that we invested in. It's kind of fizzled, and there hasn't been a high need for it or a demand for it. We have heard that the housing authority, tribal housing authority, has been interested in sending people, but people don't know to ask for that, or maybe don't see the value in that unless they're required to do it. And then we used, USDA funds, HUD funds, and we have a local funder called Cheyenne River Tribal Ventures that supported us in this. So just wanted to make sure we named them. But like I said, ours was very broad. It involved a community education process, and we still offer these products, and we still have people utilizing it. But I would say it was really a platform for us to begin talking about social entrepreneurship in Indian country, and that's kind of what we've utilized it for. Any other questions at this time?
Okay, great. We have one. Wanted to say that they trained 35 people in the Fond du Lac community at the Fond du Lac Community College.
Awesome. And trained them to be energy auditors?
I'm just going to unmute Brad for a moment. Hi, Brad. Can you hear us? Oh, I guess he's not on the phone. He said they ran.
That's okay. Okay, great.
Hi, Lakota.
To work.
Lakota, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hi, I just had a question. Did you have any specific training for your energy auditors, or did you just kind of do something in-house?
No, we did. We purchased a curriculum, and it was from like the Energy Audit Institute, and it was 12 chapters, and they had to pass it, and they were given some tools, but it had a test that provided certification that I actually went through the chapters and sort of contextualized it for our community and made our, I didn't use all 12 for the energy auditors and I personally certified them, I guess. But we didn't do, I should have clarified, we didn't do the full onboard energy audit. It was just a walkthrough, basically. We didn't have infrared cameras or anything like that. We just had these auditors trained to look for, bad windows, how many light fixtures were in the room. I have a sheet that we used, but it was like a level 1. I think I can't remember now because it was a while ago, but we didn't do the really extreme level. We did the lowest level of energy audit.
Okay, and can I find Energy Audit Institute online?
Yeah, or I could go through my emails or find it in my transaction detail for what we paid for it and then just get you the contact information. I'm not sure I would recommend it, Nepali, honestly, but you're welcome to take a look. I might even just be able to send you the curriculum that we purchased, and you can see it for yourself. That way you don't have to go through them. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
All right, great, thank you.
Yep.
If there are no other questions, I'll turn it over to Erin, and we will be answering questions at the end of all of the panelists as well.
Great. Well, thanks, Nepali and Lakota. So Four Directions has an energy efficient loan component to our housing lending products. And I wanted to preface all of this with the fact that we now have a new loan officer and we're kind of in the process of redefining policies and procedures. And the hope is that there will be some redefinition on this product, but I'll go through everything it has been so far and kind of our hopes for it going forward. So Four Directions, we're in Maine. We serve 5 tribal communities, 4 tribes spread throughout the state. We have a target market of about 9,000 tribal members that we're able to serve. And we're primarily a housing lender, mortgage lender, and we do direct lending. So we, for our loan portfolio, we've made about $1.5 million or $11.5 million loans, and our current portfolio stands at around $6.5 million. And so we do, like any CDFI, we have our counseling and our lending component. And like I said, most of our lending, the bulk of our portfolio is our standard mortgage loan, and we do on and off reservation direct mortgage loans. We do new construction. We're an approved HUD 184 lender, though we don't really do those loans currently because we're able to do our direct lending. We have improvement loans of different types. We have tribal level loan products, which are fairly new, and we have a very small consumer loan that's sort of just being launched. We were founded in 2001, so we've been around for 15 years. We have a small staff, currently 7 women, and like I said, we hold all of our mortgages, which is a challenge that Nepali mentioned about his 20-year mortgage or his 20-year loans. We have 30-year mortgages that are a big pain to finance, but that's one of our biggest challenges, and it's the same challenge for our loans that are categorized as energy efficient. Starting in 2007, 2008, the organization was looking at a triple bottom line initiative. We had found that we were pretty good at the economy and equity parts of what we were doing, but we were missing the environment piece. It hadn't been a focus. It hadn't been a part of a lot of what we did. One of our partner CDFIs in Maine had a great triple bottom line initiative, and we looked at that for guidance. We were also able to find a Maine foundation, the Betterment Fund, that gave us funding to start a planning process around this, which was huge. And we were able to, for some of our initial initiatives, we were able to hold a Green Housing Summit, a Wabanaki Green Housing Summit, that talked about green building codes and how they worked with tribal communities. It talked about some financing options for affordable green housing type initiatives, and was kind of just a conversation starter around a lot of this. And it led to, in part, a series of LEED certified homes that were constructed on Indian Island in the Penobscot Nation Reservation community that were financed and constructed by the tribe, and then actually became options for individual home ownership that we then financed for the individual borrowers later on. And then, the sort of early stages of 2007, 2008 also led to energy efficient components being added to our existing mortgage and home improvement loan products. And the initial definitions for them were pretty rigid, and we found that last year and this year there's been push to redefine and to reevaluate our model, look at the alternatives, and so hopefully that's one of our goals for this year is to really revisit both the home improvement and mortgage energy efficient components to come up with more robust definitions and impacts with them. So our purchase loans, we can do on or off reservation, new construction, first mortgage, a purchase plus improvements. And basically our standards currently are for those homes that pass a LEED certification, and so that's really only happening with tribal housing that's been developed to that standard, or Energy Star qualifying standards. But also we have local community action programs, CAP agencies, that do an energy audit that's free if you're income eligible, and the fee is not terribly steep if you're not, and it's in accordance with Maine State Housing Authority standards. So those are the basic qualifications for what an energy efficient mortgage loan would have to qualify or be considered. And although it is being revised and we're hoping to expand that definition, especially because the state of Maine has some pretty old housing stock, and it would help our portfolio to have those investments happen in the homes that we're holding for our loans. But the benefits for our energy efficient mortgage rate component are that the rate is discounted, and so our mortgage loans are generally, they've been as low as 4%, but they're generally now between 5 and 8%. And so the energy efficient mortgage loan is usually significantly less, and generally to 5.5%, but it could depend on risk and on funding. And some examples of these homes would be, so like I said, the LEED certified homes that Penobscot Nation developed, they then allowed to be options for individual home ownership, and so folks were able to come to us individually to get financing for mortgages for those homes. And then we've even had, so the CAP agency option has been explored and has worked. We've had borrowers do that from the beginning, and we've had borrowers that we've permitted to refinance to the reduced interest rate by conducting an audit and taking those improvements. And then we have our energy efficient improvement component, and so this one is again just a variation on our home improvement, our general home improvement loan. And so what qualifies are, and it's an older definition as you see, Energy Star appliances. A lot of appliances are quite energy efficient these days, and so that one's probably going to be revisited. Doors, heat pumps, related improvements, kind of like Lakota said, if folks can kind of convince us that this is going to reduce costs for them, we'll consider it as qualifying for this loan variation. And then if it's large and or structural improvements, we might require an audit, or there might be a different process around that. And with these 4 directions, we can be in a first or second position as a lender, and depending on that, we'll change our terms and our standards. Our interest rate for these is just generally a 0.5% discounted rate on what the home improvement interest rate would be. And so, yeah, examples are appliances, heating system renovation. We had a client who she was a homeowner on reservation. She owned her home outright, and she wanted to put in a new metal roof. And so that was the bulk of what her loan was, and we approved it for her to do a redo of the metal roof and a window replacement, and then she also was able to couple it with a small unsecured loan for, I think it was $7,500 from a statewide program that doesn't do a lot of work on reservation, and most of their stuff is unsecured, but they're a local organization called Efficiency Maine, and so they financed for her the installation of a heat pump and installation and weatherization of her attic, and so we were kind of combining with that effort, which was really neat to be able to do, because oftentimes our loan products aren't the only ones out there, and so it was neat for her to combine that with an outside lender as well. And so, like I said, we're kind of in the process of revising these. They've been good so far. They're still a small portion of our portfolio. I'd say of our outstanding loans, they're less than $500,000 of what we have outstanding. But at the same time, mortgage rates, home prices in Maine are pretty favorable in the sense that our average mortgage loan maybe 2 years ago was maybe $65,000 and now it's upwards of $75,000, $80,000. But you know, our owning a home in Maine is still pretty affordable, and we're making it more and more affordable as a non-reservation option as well. But we are going to consider a number of different things this year as we revise these policies and really work to advertise them fully, you know, and to have standards that we can run by experts too, to make sure that we're keeping current, because the energy efficient component is constantly evolving. So just some things we are thinking about as a staff now is sort of what impacts are we going to use to measure loan product success. They're going to look different to some degree than our standard products, so making sure we're asking questions after the fact to make sure that the impact is real and measurable, and if not, that we adjust. And what alternatives exist for appliance loans or related purchases that don't require collateralization, and making sure that we're making those options available to tribal members, because our loans often aren't the most affordable, and so if there are some that don't run into collateral issues, we want to make sure that we're advertising those, combining with those, making those options as well. Trying to come up with a valuation system for how much value the loans are adding. We obviously do an appraisal if it's or a new appraisal if it's a substantial improvement, and so that's part of the conversation. But again, most of the housing stock that we're looking at is older, and so there's a component there in terms of value added that we want to make sure we're capturing and understanding, and making sure that we're helping to reduce utility costs and to what degree, and that, you know, we're helping to educate as well as part of this process, because there's not a lot of knowledge necessarily out there about, okay, what's the best way for me to reduce my utility costs, and we feel that as a lender we should be providing that education component as well to help our borrowers and tribal members truly leverage the most value from this loan product. Yeah, does anybody have any questions?
If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to unmute or type it into the question and answer field. I guess I have one question for everyone. Did you need any additional staff or time to carry out the needs within the new loan products that were developed? I guess I'll start with Nepali if you wanted to answer that. If there you had to hire.
Yeah, we didn't necessarily have to hire any new staff or anything. Part of our challenge is just trying to figure out, well, what are the best terms to offer? I mean, when we see needs in the community, unfortunately, we just kind of wing it and just, you know, based on our limited experience, try to figure out, okay, we'll just do this. It's probably not the most scientific way, but that's how we've been doing it. But in terms of adding new staff to put out these new loan products, we didn't add any new staff.
Okay, great. Lakota?
Yeah, no, this is Lakota. We didn't add any new staff either. We were the same as Nepali. We kind of maybe should have to get a better, just to hone in on it. But I think the point was we knew it was grant funded, and we knew that if, you know, we could sustain the product if we blended it into our regular loan department. So we didn't really want to necessarily add the staff a staff person because that position probably wouldn't have been sustainable.
And Erin?
Ours, I wouldn't say we had to add a new staff member, but we've also kind of in the last 2-3 years grown from 3 staff to 7. So part of being able to revisit this loan product and really define it and look, more proactively towards its impact and redefinition, I think has only been possible with having an increased staff capacity.
Okay, great. Lauren has a question for Nepali. He asks, do the PV loan clients have power purchase agreements available?
Yes, Lauren, they do actually, and so then that's another kind of player in the market where power purchase agreements, for everyone else who doesn't, who hasn't really heard of that, is contractors will install photovoltaic systems at no cost to the homeowner, but what they do is they set up an agreement where the homeowner will pay the contractor for like a regular monthly, a fixed monthly fee for the energy that's estimated to be generated from the solar system, and then the homeowner also pays the electric company for whatever the excess is. So the homeowner is paying 2 different people for electricity. Ideally, in total, they're paying less than without the solar system, but under a purchase power agreement, they don't have to pay all the upfront costs for the system itself. So yes, Lauren, we do have that.
Okay, great. And Lincoln asks, what recommendations do you have for completing home improvement loans on tribally owned homes?
This is Erin. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, Lakota or Erin, do you have any experience with that?
So for 4 Directions, we what we're able to do, I mean, most of what we're doing is individual homeownership that's on reservation land, and which we know looks really differently. And it's in part we've been able to do some legal innovation work with tribal court systems that allow us to do that, and that's a whole other process. That being said, our housing authorities work very closely with us, and we've done, I mean, like I said, at the larger scale, in terms of new construction of tribally owned homes, we've played a role in, like if there was a substantial renovation of maybe 4 units, 7 units, enough that it was not at the individual home level, we've played a role, and the tribe has sort of provided the collateral to some degree, and so we've been able to finance it in that regard. But then as far as individuals wanting financing, individuals residing in tribal housing wanting financing for home improvement for us, we haven't been able to do a lot in that regard on the individual level.
This is Lakota. I think we talked about it and discussed it, and we decided that we didn't mind even if they were renting from their tribal housing authority, if a renter wants to make those home improvements and take on the debt instead of making their landlord or the housing authority do it, we thought more power to them. We never took any part of the home as collateral or didn't do a second mortgage or anything. We just basically, if they had a car or something, they could put it up if they wanted to, but really these loans were largely unsecured, and we did require like an ACH payment if they were employed. But we took a risk and had people do that, and we didn't limit it to tribal owned or housing authority owned and rented or anything like that.
Okay, great. And we have one question from Brad. I'm going to unmute you. Are you there, Brad?
Thank you. Yes. Lakota, I was interested in finding out what you thought was the reason for the interest lacking after the training was given. When I was sharing, we had like 45 people go through it. This was for the Building Performance Institute, and the grant was significant, and a lot of people got through the training and then realized that the burden was $5,000 or $20,000 worth of equipment, and many didn't have the resources to do that. And then out of those 45 people, I think maybe 3 to 5 are employed somehow. And so I'm curious as to why do you see that occurrence, and what do you think we can do to make it more engaging and create sustainability to those individuals that are pretty motivated with a passion to learn it, and then realizing there's that hurdle after the fact of what the costs are for the equipment, and then engaging and running the business. How do you see a path to overcoming that?
You know, that's a great question, and I might just ask that back to you. But I think one thing we thought about. What was that?
Yeah. I said there is a conversation behind it, I'm sure. But I just wanted to hear your thoughts on it, because it's heartbreaking that what we've seen happen here. We even had through the weatherization program like 6 trucks and 50 people employed, and when the state shut down, they sold the trucks, the equipment went into the warehouse, and the talent was gone in a matter of 4 months. It was just like,
yeah. You know what? So I have like 3 possible solutions, and we need to do this as well. But one thing I thought about doing was purchasing the equipment for these energy auditors, or these folks that want to go out and, you know, pursue this as a passion, and then leasing it to them. That way, you know, we hold it for them until they're ready to pay it off, and doing like a lease-to-own project with them, because we could find a grant to buy that, right? And then if that's what the holdup is, I think the issue is on the consumer side of people unwilling to pay for that type of service. And I think it's more of a public education campaign that needs to happen. And also, we need to do a better job of showing the outcomes. Like Nepali did a really good job explaining the decrease in cost, and Forbands ran across some issues with trying to track that type of impact because of inconsistent, we didn't necessarily always address electrical issues, you know, so showing impact and the decrease in cost for the homeowner or the business is really important, and I think that would validate and add credibility to those entrepreneurs trying to fill that niche. But we didn't do a great job of doing that, and I wish I could go back and think of better ways to show the impact.
And maybe this one can be to Nepali as a follow-up too, and you also, with respect to the contractors, are they native contractors, or are they contractors who are willing to roll up their sleeves, or some of both? What did you find there on the PV and the solar, hot water, and in some of the other contract work for the recommendations that would be like insulation or windows, et cetera?
This is Nepali. So for for the solar industry here in Hawaii, there are a great number of contractors who are doing that type of work. The particular special pilot program that we did for the photovoltaic system was actually with a contractor who is Hawaiian. He's the owner of the company, so that's a Hawaiian-owned company. But other than specific types of things like that, we haven't really had any issue or specifically looked for Native-owned contractors in that industry?
This is Lakota. All of our contractors were Native. We didn't do that on purpose, but they were from the community and they were Native.
Cool.
Great. Thank you. I believe we're coming up on the 2 o'clock hour. It's about 2:03 Mountain Time. So if anyone has any final questions, I will also be providing contact information for the panelists today if you wanted to follow up individually.
Stephanie, I just wanted to add one more thing to answer Lauren's question about the PPA contractors. So I just wanted to say that when we looked at purchasing photovoltaic systems, it's always better if you can afford it to purchase your own system, because you end up paying the system off and getting your return within about 5 years. And then after that 5-year period, you're really only paying about $20 a month as a base amount to the electric company. Whereas in a purchase power agreement, you're effectively in a 20-year lease with the contractor who installed your system. So I think maybe that helps Lauren a little bit more in terms of information.
Okay, great. Thank you. So with that, I'd just like to pitch out to all the panelists, organizations, as well as our own OWISTA. Please like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to our newsletters. And please join us for our next webinar, which will be next week at 12 p.m. Mountain Time, on the ARIS rating process and their new cloud system. Registration can be found on our website at www.owista.org/events. And thank you so much for joining us for this webinar. Thank you so much to the panelists. You have innovative, creative loan products that are impacting Indian country throughout the nation. And thank you so much for all the work that you do. If anyone has any follow-up questions, please look out for our email. And if you would like to revisit this webinar, please visit www.owista.org in our online help desk. And thank you, miigwech, to everyone.